of the very same workers that we're actually talking about. A document, a very, very clumsy, a very disgraceful kind of a document, which has a lot of inaccuracies. The point is that document is actually signed by the minister, compelled by these technocrats. Here is the point. Fast forward again. The union had to engage them only last month, and the document had to be reversed now to say this document is full of is riddled with untruthfulness. It's tamsakti kind of information. At some point, Sakina, Cathy, these are things that we need to actually engage on, because there are silent struggles that are being fought on the ground because of your technocrats. And, in driving, there's something that is called blind spot. Our focus as a country will be focusing on the politicians at the level of your ministries, whereas on the ground, you have these technocrats who are there. Okay. The point is, Cathy, perhaps if they are contracts, they can be on contracts as well, 5 years contract in line with the leadership. I'm reminded of this by, of course, Kakaza in Egorule, when he complained about officials who are mobilizing for a vote of no confidence against him. This is what is being experienced.
Okay. Shafa, look, you've said quite a lot, right? In some instances, I was able to follow, other instances, not so much. I think what we would have to do is to look at this particular document that you're talking about that speaks about the approach to the EWPD workers, and then we take it from there. So let me put you through back to Kanya, and she'll be able to take your details down. And yeah, I think only once we've been able to see the document and how it proposes that the laying off of these individuals take place can we.
And that is 255,000.
Yeah,
that must be laid off according to them. Yes.
Yeah, it's quite significant. So only after we've seen it then would we be able to engage further on this particular conversation. For now, I need to go to news. We'll continue on the other side.
Good morning. In the headlines, 12 people have died and several others have been injured following a bus crash on the R21 northbound near the OR Tambo International Airport on Gauteng's East Rand. Senior policy specialist Neil Coleman says the social relief of distress grant should not be used to justify a 2% VAT increase. Finance Minister Inoko Dongwana has been criticized for suggesting to reduce the SRT grant to increase the value-added tax. And 7 members of the medical team that treated football legend Diego Maradona before his death will go on trial today for involuntary manslaughter. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
Are you a member of a Stokvel or Burial Society? Catch Gezaka on SABC2 on Wednesdays at 12:30 midday and at 10:30 at night, and again on Saturdays at 12:30 midday. The repeat is on SABC1 on Fridays at 4:30. Gezaka team will be at Newgate Mall opposite Bree Taxi Rank from the 6th to the 31st of March from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. to assist your Stokvel or Burial Society. Call or WhatsApp on 081-596-1065. The Facebook profile is Gezaka Stokvel and Burial Society show. Gezaka, brought to you in partnership with SABC Education.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us, because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana, weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
All sorts of corrupt activities came from here. Dairy farm, Guptas, they were here. Asbestos, all of those things come from here.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Seskat, hi. Well, this is JCK Kaunda from Osina. Seskat, I would like to concur with Mweleki Mbeki saying the ANC is no more pro-poor. The ANC has ran out of ideas and they're showing us true colors by blackmailing the voters. Those politicians are volunteers to begin with. And secondly, those politicians are public representatives. They're showing us who they are. No wonder our towns, cities, and Kasi are so dirty because of them. They care about the lining of their pocket, not us as voters. There's a way to make money. Many ways to make money. Let me rest my case for now. Jesse K. Kaunda from Sina.
Good morning, Sis Cathy and your team. This is Anonymous from Komhlabyalingan. You know, Sis Cathy, the ANC should completely be thrown out of power because it has shown on numerous occasions that it doesn't care for the poor people. Thank you.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. Sis Cathy, my question is why the Finance Minister Korongwana is not listening to the SARS Commissioner Kees Vetter. Why the Finance Minister is not putting more resources to SARS to make sure that all the businesses are registered for income tax, VAT, as well as pay as you earn, for SARS to be on the ground doing inspections. Why the minister is not putting more resources to SARS instead of increasing the VAT? Thanks from Andile in Willowvale, Eastern Cape.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Yeah, one of the questions I started off by asking this morning is that when you see the conversation and debate around putting the budget together, your overall sense of whose interests this budget is serving, whose interests is this budget likely to serve? So I'm taking some of your calls and comments on that. Remember the studio line 086 000 2032, on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. Of course, it is your national roundtable, so you're more than welcome to raise any other matter of national importance. Let me then go to Nice Time in Cape Town.
Yes, good morning, ma'am.
Okay, good morning, Nice Time. Interesting radio name. I'm assuming that's your radio name?
I know, this is my original name, Madam Cathy.
In your ID?
Precisely. I was given this name by my daddy. You can laugh if can I try to explain to you of what you said about this name.
Please go ahead and explain it to us. You've got all of our attention.
Oh, serious? Oh, but it's not new from me because ever since I went to any job to ask an employment, especially to the whites, is whereby they will be shown that nice time. Okay. It happens in this way, ma'am. My daddy says to me when I ask him 207, how can you give your child the name Nice Time? What do you expect in the nearest future? He says, no, man. I was in 120% love with your mother because I came from the divorce. So your mother gave me the 120% love. So it's whereby I said to her, the child that is coming must be Nice Time because you bless me, you give me the nice life. You copy.
Nice Time unamanga. You are lying. There's no way this is true.
Precisely, serious. I asked my daddy. He's no longer on earth, but of what I says is true. Because I sit down with him to ask him about this name because most of the time I didn't realize, but as I grew up, and let's no, man. How can being a man and give his own son Nice Time? But I enjoy that name now.
Did you not enjoy it before?
No, that was worse that time because you see, when you are in the world and do all things, but now at least at this age, I'm matured.
Yeah, I imagine high school must have been tough, hey, nice time. Eh?
Can you repeat, ma'am?
I'm saying I imagine high school must have been tough. Because, teenagers, teenagers can be the worst.
Exactly, ma'am.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay.
Nice time. What a story. Yeah, what do you want to talk about this morning?
Ma'am, as I'm coming far with the story that you receive, it's a disgrace to me that I receive under this name Nice Time. Because ever since I was employed by the SAP, from that year of 88, stationed there at New Brighton, took the transfer from PE to Queenstown, the expectation and the vision to be there, to be closer at home. Because I noticed that time all the political parties were out, all these leaders of the country. Where I was in Queenstown, I noticed something that, man, is worse than PE. Because the main point is that there were laws for Transcayans and Ciscayans, trespass and all these laws. So it's whereby now I was just wondering myself, because I was just there at the station and receive the complainants to the people, whereby there is a docket in front of myself. I'll keep on writing and listen. That is all. But in Queenstown, something else that I didn't know. But okay, it happens in this way, ma'am. The mistake that I did in Queenstown, under all what you heard, or you heard and listened to that statement, is whereby I arrest the whites who commit the crime like others, in a way that because that time they were free to drink in public. So for truth's sake, all the whites that time, they were the victims of nice time to drink in public. It goes ahead whereby there was another man called Constable Mkhubata, all the way took transfer from PE to Queenstown. He stays, let's say, to a village called Upper Ditmana, there at AU, because me and him, I'm in Whittlesea, is there to the village called...
Nice time. I want to understand. So what exactly are you saying?
What I'm asking, madam, is I was arrested with Mkhubata on the 14th of October, 1992.
Mm-hmm.
And on the 15th of October, I was published to Daily Dispatch. There was the article there said, 2 policemen at Queenstown were founded with 2 AK-47s, but their names cannot be out due of the investigation by warrant officer standard. We were not charged even there that time. Went straight to court and the lawyer was available. Something else new there in court. When this lawyer produced that paper of Daily Dispatch about his own clients, is whereby now the magistrate says, no, you are a liar. You are mistaken, because the docket is stated clean that these 2 clients of yours took the stamp of the District 16 head office of Queenstown and wrote an article or a message to ask the money to the cripple, for crippled policemen. How much this money they were collecting by Nice Time and Mkhubata? 5 rands per person, 4 white complainants, and 1 black man. This man was 25 rands. Just to cut the story, there was no bail. There are a lot of story as you read there. The bail was 1,000 rands, and forced by the lawyer Zepe to 500 rands.
Nice time. I'm going to need you to then fast forward to what the point of all of this is today. Why have you called in to talk about this arrest that took place so long ago?
Okay. The main point is this: the disgrace I received in Cape Town is this: that 14th October replaced by the company of security, two companies said next time you influence the police on the 14th 1092 into politics. I also went and forwarded this matter to the PA of the Minister Mchunu and all the documents and all the relevant documents to ask any intervention, because now there is no way where myself I can receive a job, because now I'm unemployed, and then I did not receive even a cent to the state, stay in prison for 10 months. Not a cent I received from the SAPS. So that is why I'm asking the intervention of health. If the Constitution of South Africa is my question, or is this Constitution of the country maybe to the people who are in high position, or maybe to the people who are well educated? That is why I prefer to ask and bow down to the journalists of SAFM.
Okay, all right.
Please, ma'am.
Okay, nice time. I'm going to have to leave it there with you for this morning.
Yes,
I think I hear the crux of what you are saying, that basically you were wrongfully arrested, you lost your job, and since then you've been struggling to gain employment because you have not had the opportunity of actually clearing your name. That's the gist of what I understand. I don't know what we're going to be able to do for you. Given the fact that arrest also took place in 1992, so that's what, 32 years ago? Almost, yeah, it's about 32 years ago. Next time I can't make any promises, to be honest, but clearly you're not having a nice time where this issue is concerned. Okay, let me go to Mike in Middleburg. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Please give me as a quiet time, as a nice time. Yeah. Thank you, Cathy.
Mike, go for it.
Yeah, Cathy, the president
you know what, Mike? Your line is not great. I'm going to have to ask the team to call you back. Let's see if we can get you back on a different line. In the meantime, Peter, you're in the Free State. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, Peter, go for it.
Yes, I just want to support what Mohlahlana said about the current ANC, which now against which white and pro middle class and has forsaken the poor of this country. And secondly, sister, this government of ours is too much, man. They can cut it. That is, we can get enough money. This Godogwana must not come and rob poor people like about this team. Please, man.
Peter, what is your biggest concern about?
My biggest concern, it's interesting if Godogwana is so worried about where will he get money for VT. But they know that the government is broken. The current government is broken. We've got many parties there. Others, they don't even have followers. And they don't know where to get money. Our country is in debt. Now, if they can cut other jobs, we have enough money. They look they are driving with expensive cars, with blue lights, people to look after them, while the poor of this country are suffering. How can something be done, or we stand together and say we don't do this we don't need this too much Cabinet Ministers Brute.
Okay. All right, Peter. Heard you loud and clear. Peter out in the Free State. Percy, you are in, is it Kumbu? Good morning.
My name is Kwezi.
Oh, it's Kwezi. It's down here as Percy. Apologies, Kwezi.
Good morning, Cathy. Cathy, in whose interest is this budget for? This budget is in the interest of the elite. You know, the ruling elite created an elitist club of beneficiaries who benefited immensely out of this democracy. They benefited materially and they are continuing to benefit politically. And this budget has got an anti-poor posture. Look, over the years, Katie, the ANC government has been very profligate when it comes to managing the public purse. It has since come to light that the Department of Public Works, South Africa, is in possession of a property portfolio of 1.8 million properties around the country and 5 million hectares of land. And most of those properties go to Mthatha. They have been invaded by people who do not deserve to stay in those properties. Remember, the Department of Public Works services those properties. They pay for electricity, they pay for refuse removal, they pay for water. And yet, the Department of Public Works is gaining nothing out of that investment at the end of the day. I want to contrast that with the number of privately owned properties that the Department of Public Works rents in order to accommodate the various state departments. One, if the Department of Public Works can renovate its own properties and house the various government departments, research is showing that the Department of Public Works can save a minimum of 50 billion rands per year. So in order to avoid increasing the percentage of VAT, the department or government must start with those basics.
All right.
Second, and one last time, I think there is a lot of unnecessary bureaucracy in government, starting with the so-called deputy ministers and going to technocrats that get employed. You will find that one minister has a staff complement of about 50 people in the office, and some do not have a very clear job description, and those people are a liability to the state. So I just wanted to make those 2 points.
Yeah, look, Kwezi, thanks for that, and I can tell that you've clearly been doing your research as well. I always wonder why it is that if the Department of Public Works has all of these buildings that are available for use, maybe they need to be renovated in some parts, might need some improvements, why it is that you still have government departments and entities that are renting, space within the commercial market. Surely that is part of the low-hanging fruit, as Kwezi is highlighting there. Mike, you're in Middleburg. You're back on the line.
Yes, you can hear me now, Cathy.
Yes, much better.
Thank you, Cathy. I'll be very brief. Cathy, the president visited Joburg and lamented about the state of the city, state of the municipalities, the roads, deterioration of services in general. And but of course, what the president saw in Joburg is the state of municipalities in the entire country, or let me say, in most of the towns in the entire country. And I wonder, the president obviously cannot go to each and every city and lament. But all he has to do is to actually confront the elephant in the room, Cathy. The elephant in the room, the kind of political guidance the deployees get during caucus meetings, the instructions that they get, that is what matters most. I think the president, in his capacity as the president of the leading party in the government of national unity, together with the SG, they must just confront the elephant in the room.
Mike,
that's my story.
The reality is that there is no political will to do that, because we are at a point now where we understand what drives the inefficiencies at local government, what drives the wastage, the wasteful expenditure. We know. We can't say we don't know, because the patterns have shown themselves over a number of years across different municipalities. And the reality is that there's no political will. Even you, Mike, know that there's no political will to deal with it.
No, it's very true. It's very true, Cathy. And it's so hurtful, to realize that even those towns that were centers of excellence have joined the fray. It's so heartbreaking, I was attending a funeral on Saturday, so my son was driving me. We're traveling to Witbank, just inside Middelburg here, before you go to Witbank, a lot of potholes, countless potholes, and we're nearly delayed, actually, because we have to be extra careful when you drive. So it's unfortunate. But lastly, Cathy, you know how the municipal watch was introduced. Please, I beg you, cover Mohlahlana now. It's long overdue.
All right, Mike. Mike out in Middleburg. Yeah, let's leave it there. Yeah, Mike, if I could tell you the list, the names of municipalities that we get on a weekly basis that residents are asking us to cover. Yeah, we simply cannot keep up. Excuse me. Yanga, you're out in Cape Town. Good morning.
Hi, Cathy. Cathy, are you familiar with the podcast,
Yes, I am.
Yes, no, like the Secretary General of the ANC was picking up that podcast, and I was disturbed, to listen to him, because the person is supposed to make sure that discipline it is happening in the organization. But if him, is the same guy, I'm wondering who must discipline him, because the consultation of elective conference of the leadership of the ANC, it has not been opened for now, because we still have local government elections. But Ufikile Mbalula was asked by will he stand for presidency? Instead of answering yes or no, he was like, I'm 2 years as an SG. I mean, why can't people focus on Paul Mashatile? For me, he is, campaigning for Paul Mashatile, and the constitution of the ANC, there's no way that it says a deputy president automatically become the next president. So I was very disappointed, and yeah, I don't know who will discipline him. Because
look, if you look at part of the analysis of what's been happening recently, he's the one that is disciplining others and pulling them before the integrity committee and all sorts of things.
You see?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, no, it's because I mean we have local government elections coming, and the processes of campaigning has not been open, but was clearly endorsing Paul Mashatile, which is wrong.
Okay, Yanga, I hear you, but I think, the point around how the conversations around the succession debate in the ANC, that point around it sort of being kept quiet until a particular point where it's officially opened, I think it's been moot now for years. It's shown that it's just not possible to actually do that.
Yeah, but I mean, if the SG is the one, who's opening that can of worm, I mean,
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I just think that the reality has always been different to the expectation and to the rules of what the ANC says. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, Yanga out in Cape Town. Let's leave it there. Okay, it's just after 10. Time for your latest news update.
In our top stories, 12 people killed in a bus crash near OR Tambo International Airport, and Mpumalanga police officer faces 2 charges of murder. Good morning. 12 people have died and several others have been injured following a bus crash on the R21 northbound near the OR Tambo International Airport on Gauteng's East Rand. The crash occurred on the R21 northbound just after the R24 at the OR Tambo International Airport interchange. All 4 lanes have been completely blocked off to traffic. Motorists are advised to use alternative routes. Ekurhuleni EMS spokesperson William Mtladi.
The bus has jackknifed, rolled several times, and unfortunately in that accident we have accounted this far 12 fatalities, all of them adults, then 9 are males and 3 are females. The entire freeway is still closed. Number of other patients that are injured have been transported to various hospitals.
Senior policy specialist Neil Coleman says the social relief of distress grant should not be used to justify a 2% VAT increase. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has been criticised for suggesting to reduce the SRD grant or increase the value-added tax. The SRD grant was first implemented in 2020 as a short-term solution to assist citizens who were at financial risk during the COVID-19 pandemic. The government has had to pay over 35 billion rand a year for this initiative. Coleman elaborates.
What they're doing is to pit one issue facing the poor against another group of the poor, which is to say either you get your over 8 million SRD grants every month to stave off hunger and poverty, or you accept VAT increase. Otherwise, we'll do away with the grants if you don't accept the VAT increase. Both of these things, withdrawing the grant or increasing VAT, as we know, would be extremely anti-poor. It's a form of blackmail.
Soweto Taxi Association WATA says they are prepared to work with rival association Nandue and put an end to the ongoing dispute. This follows yesterday's disruptions of taxi services in Soweto, where members of Nandue allegedly blocked off several roads in the township, leaving thousands of commuters stranded. Nandue is yet to comment on the matter. Operations have resumed this morning with no disruptions having been reported. WATA spokesperson Hamilton Mia.
On the 16th of January, DP gave the Nandue a right to own the route. That was on a conflict. Then we went to court. When we went to court, then we won the judgment of DP. Then the judge says we must operate without anyone to interfere with our operations. And we must operate with Nandoe. We mustn't chase away Nandoe. Then Nandoe, I think, didn't like that. As well, because we are still waiting for application, we prepare to work with Nandoe because the statement says we mustn't chase them away. And also they mustn't interfere with our operations.
A police officer stationed in Bushbuck Ridge, Mpumalanga, has appeared in the local magistrates' court facing 2 charges of murder. Officer Niko Nyati handed herself over to police on Monday. She's accused of being involved in the killing of a husband and his female friend last year. Fusitwala reports.
According to a police statement, Officer Nyati's husband, Lawrence Mashiho, was attacked by a group of armed men at his house in Boikutong. He was kidnapped to a certain house in Zokno, where a 44-year-old female, Victoria Libiane, was found. The suspect took a certain amount of cash and 2 vehicles before killing Mashiho and Libiane. One pleaded guilty and sentenced to 77 years. Nyati is in police custody and will appear in the Bushbuck Ridge Magistrate Court again on Wednesday.
And finally, 7 members of the medical team that treated football legend Diego Maradona before his death will go on trial today for involuntary manslaughter. Maradona was recovering from surgery when he died from a heart attack in 2020 at the age of 60. A year later, prosecutors concluded his death could have been avoided and blamed medical negligence. The BBC's Veronica Smink reports.
Maradona suffered a heart attack at his rented house in the outskirts of Buenos Aires in November 2020. He was recovering from surgery to remove a blood clot on his brain. The medical staff who were in charge of his care included nurses, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and the brain surgeon who operated on him weeks earlier. They are all being accused of involuntary manslaughter. Their lawyers say the footballer refused treatment and should have stayed longer in the hospital after his operation. The 3 judges in charge of the case will listen to close to 200 witnesses and are expected to reach a decision by July.
Recapping the top story, 12 people have died and several others have been injured following a bus crash on the R21 northbound near the OR Tambo International Airport on Gauteng's East Rand. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dress to commemorate Human Rights Day and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on SABC2 at 6 p.m. or visit sabcsport.com. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok.
This is a story of Vodacom's impact.
I didn't know anything about computer. I learned a computer after I passed my matric, and Vodacom is doing an excellent job in the youth of South Africa.
This is why we do it. Over 1,800 Youth Academy students trained, with 250 placed in ICT coordinator roles at our schools of excellence. That's why we're the #1 CSI contributor for 8 years running. See more at now.vodacom.coza. Further together, Vodacom. Whether we are at the workplace, within communities, at school, or with our friends and family, we all need to demonstrate the kind of responsibility that we would like to see in our country's future. SAFM commemorates Human Rights Month.
From the 10th to the 16th of March 2025, the South African National Biodiversity Institute is hosting its first National Gardens Week. Visitors can enjoy free entry to all national botanical and zoological gardens across South Africa, including Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden and the Pretoria Zoo. This year's theme, Grow Your Joy, invites visitors to embrace nature, wellness and community by taking a peaceful walk, joining a guided tour, or learning about conservation in some of the country's most breathtaking green spaces. Nature has never been this open to all. Celebrate, protect, and enjoy biodiversity wealth. Visit www.sanbi.org for details.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 10 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of The Talking Point. Coming up in this hour, we are talking finance with Brian Hirsch, and of course he's going to be helping us unpack our investment choices, but in particular predicting what the outlook for the short term holds when it comes to investing. So that's the conversation we'll have with him shortly. Before we get into that, lots of WhatsApp voice notes on different issues from you on the open line this morning. So we'll take a couple of those before we get into our finance segment.
Good morning, Ausiketi. This is Nkunzi from Kwachema. The ANC has run out of cards. It has only got one card left. Crucial one. Just watch the space. It's gonna give poor people back the land. That's what the ANC is going to do to win people's hearts. Just like ZANU-PF tried to do in 2008 when they saw that the opposition MDC was rising. They just decided to give people land, trying to convince them to vote for them.
Sisikati, we need to have a point of correction. People are referring Kodongwane as ANC. He's not ANC, it's GNU. The government of today is not ANC. It's the GNU. It's GNU. It's a collective of all these political parties. It's no more ANC. Why do you want to promote ANC as the government here? It's the GNU. GN Union. Lisa from Brixton.
Good morning, Cathy. I don't agree with the Molet Mpege's perspective. Look at the two departments which are cost drivers in terms of budget. Department of Education, the poor is sending children to those public schools. Health, the uninsured of this country is attending the public health facilities. So the government is saving the poor. In terms of the wage bill, maybe the government must look at the highest level, because those are the people who are high income receivers of the budget. But at the bottom level, there's shortage. Go to the clinic, there's shortage. Go to the SAPS, there's shortage. Go to the school, there's shortage. Thank you. Anonymous in KZN.
Good day, Cathy. Hey, you made my day with this man called Nice Time. Yeah. You know, he really made me smile today. This guy with a name like Nice Time, he should open his own blogs and start YouTubing. He'll become a celebrity. You'll see. The name like Nice Time. You should just speak about issues in this country that are going on. He's going to be a celebrity. Nice Time. There's my advice for him. If you can't find a job, open a blog, YouTube, go online. Nice Time.
Hi, Cathy. My name is Raymond, and I just wanted to touch on 2 points with regards to the budget. The first one is the export market, which is only centered on 3 items for now, which is mining, transportation, as well as agriculture. And I think we pretty much know that all those economies are not really centered around South African economy to a certain degree, meaning a certain portion does not stay in the country, so it does affect the economy's growth. And the second one is the informal economy, which is centered around, or which is valued around 900 billion. And that is not getting much support as needed. Look at the spaza shop, for instance. How many spazas and what is the value of the spaza shop in its market value? I just wanted to add those and say, perhaps.
Hi, good morning, Cathy, and your team. Flores here from the Western Cape. Cathy, I've immigrated from your station, and yeah, I thought the grass was greener the other side, but I have really missed you, so I'm back. Cathy, no to 2% VAT and no to removing the SRD grant. The minister mustn't come and try and force our hands. There is money. There were money already budgeted for this SRD grants. They really need to cut on parliamentary spending. Too much money have been spent on electricity, petrol, whining and dining. Yeah, that's it. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
My dear listener, the grass is not greener on the other side. You must stay where you will have a nice time.
Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
Okay. Oh, nice time. You've made my show today. Nice time. Brian, you ready to have a nice time?
I'm always ready to have a nice time. You know, as Charlie Brown said to Snoopy, he says, you only live once, and Snoopy said, you're wrong. You only die once, you live every day. Love that one.
Welcome to the show, Brian Hirsch.
Yeah, thank you. Cathy, good morning to you. Can I just deal with a few housekeeping matters?
Please.
Questions asked to me.
Go ahead.
First question last week was asked about SATSA. When can you, even if someone said they want to do some part-time work to add some money to their coffers, the answer is, firstly, you cannot be receiving any other social grant for yourself, and you can't be cared for in any state institution. You cannot earn more than 86,000 if you're single, or 172,560 if you're married. And you can't have assets worth more if you're single, 1.2 million, and if you're married, 2.455 million. So that caller to ask us about can they do some part-time work, if you're single and you earn less than 86,280 rand, you are still entitled to a SATSA grant. That's the one question I couldn't ask last week. The other question I couldn't ask was, someone said, if you've taken money out of the two-pot system, can you put it back? The answer is you cannot be placed back into the savings component. You can make an additional contribution to an RA, and it will be noted as a voluntary contribution in the basis of 1/3 and 2/3. 2/3 going to the retirement pot and 1/3 to the savings pot. So the answer is, if you've taken money out and you want to put it back, you can only put it back via contributing further to a retirement annuity. That just deals with questions I was unable to answer last week.
All right. Okay. Thanks for that, Brian. So today we're talking about how we can try and really predict what the short-term future holds when it comes to investing. And I know why you're laughing, right? Because we can't actually predict, but it's really just to say where should we be placing our expectations.
Yeah, well, you can predict in one way, because those who predict and get it right, they'll say, see, I told you so. But in the short term, I think back of an article I wrote in my book many years ago, and I wrote about people. I said, investors are regularly faced with situations that are totally unexpected. And I look at the sporting fields, and who would have expected in '88 in Seoul, Ben Johnson to be disqualified from 100 meters and Marion Jones to be stripped of her medals? Who would have thought that Tiger Woods would have lost major sponsors, and Susan Boyle and Philip Potts, who would have won Britain's Got Talent? Who would ever predict any of those things? Well, the prediction now is, what is Trump up to today? What is he going to say tomorrow? And therefore, very simply, no one can predict what's going to go in the future. One can then say, well, I've got some ideas, and with the markets falling at the moment, this is the time for sense to prevail. This is the time for you to be talking to your financial advisor, who now needs to become a financial psychologist, stopping you do the things that we do when we're fearful. But, you know, when you're investing, you need to be thinking all the time 5 years out. I've always said on this program and all the other programs I deal with, money that you need in the next 1 to 3 years, put that in bank accounts. You're getting good rates of return, and you know it's certain and secure. But, you know, at the moment, Trump is causing absolute mayhem, and stock markets are in a downtrend. Look, the two asset classes to be invested in that will always beat inflation are equities and property. other than a few areas that are in demand, the Atlantic seaboard, maybe Schlanga and various other places. Property has been in a downtrend over the last 6 years, and anyone who bought a property 6 years ago will be very lucky if they sold it today to get back what they paid. And you always think of property being a hedge against inflation and rising, not falling. Yet investors in property are not paranoid about this, as they're not sellers, and nor do they value their property regularly. As long as rental's coming in, they worry about the rental, they don't worry about the investments. Well, on the share market, when you're buying into equities, equities are companies that have raised money from the public and are what we call listed companies. They pay a dividend. So if you're getting dividends and you're living off dividends, you don't need to worry about whether the share price is up or down. But when equities, it's always looked at so differently. And at the moment, there's an enormous fear. I mean, after 2 very good years again, once because of Trump's policies, equities have caused equities to fall. And if you're not a seller and you have quality investments, see this often as an opportunity to invest at lower levels. I mean, when, they always say sell when everyone's euphoric and buy when everyone's negative and fearful. So these are good opportunities to top up. I'm not saying I'd put all my money in. Let's assume I was going to put 100,000 in. Maybe I'd start off gradually, and at these levels, put 25,000 in. Another month or two, 25. Gradually top up. But you can't. If you're buying quality companies, these are great times to buy. And this is where your financial advisor needs to really hold your hand through this very difficult times. Because investors have lost out many years because of fear. And I use some of the words of the letter fear. F is for falling prices, E is for eroding prices, A is for abatement, and R is for reducing, all relating to the fear of losing money. Well, they did a study many years ago about people winning or losing money in a casino. And they found out that someone who goes in with $1,000 or 1,000 rand and wins 1,000 rand has a certain amount of pleasure. But if they lose 1,000 rand, they have 5 times more displeasure than the amount of pleasure they get from winning. So you've got to understand that, and the casinos love people who come in and try and win their money back because they know, I mean, I don't need to tell you, these people are the people who've contributed to building some of the biggest hotels in the world, just like in Las Vegas. And many people can actually say, I put that's my brick, that's the money I lost. So don't panic. We can't predict what's going to happen in the short term. We do know that the fear now is that America may go into recession. It's unlikely because there are things that can be done. I'll talk about that in a different program. And then just remember, ourselves, we've got our own problems now. We've got the budget coming tomorrow. There is so many rumors about what's going to be happening. Is there going to be a wealth tax? Are they going to do away with medical aid credits? Because if they do, that's a big tax extra that people are going to be paying because everyone gets some abatement or rebate from any contribution they make to medical aid. A wealth tax I dealt with last week. Unlikely that we get a wealth tax. So let's see what happens tomorrow. I will be reporting it tomorrow at 4 o'clock on my TV program. But I've just got to wait and see. Sit tight, and if you look and understand your strategy, are you looking for growth? Are you looking for income? Or are you looking for both of the two?
So, Brian, I mean, one of the conversations that we've been having over the last year or so, when it comes to where people should be invested, you, of course, have talked about technology stocks, some of, these really amazing innovation companies that have come on board. And part of that then also, resulting in us then saying people should actually also be looking offshore in terms of markets to invest in. Is that still the case, given what
Cathy,
the Trump factor has brought into the works?
Cathy, I'm very surprised that our rand has stood up so strongly. I mean, we'll be reading out in a moment what the rand is, but it's somewhere around about 1830, 1835. When you think about normally what happens when they're selling, individuals sell out of all merging markets and they go into cash or bonds, something more safely, but our rand stood firm. I'm a firm believer that American markets are not American markets. They are global companies listed on the American Stock Exchange in dollars, but the Amazons of the world, the Apple of the world, the NVIDIAs, the ASML, all these companies are not American companies. They're global companies. I still am a firm believer that you want to be in technology. That's the future. You want to be in pay systems. No one's taking cash these days. You've got to use credit cards. I mean, you go to a sporting event, you can't even pay cash. I went to my last week in Cape Town. I went to my kids' sports day, and I went to the tuck shop to buy something. They wouldn't even take cash. Had to give them a system. Medical devices, I mean, today, when you think about hip operations and knee and all the things that go with it, when you think of the diet drugs, all these companies get affected when people panic. They sell. And they tend to sell the shares they've made profits on. They hold the ones that they're losing on. It always amazes me. You hold on to your losses and you sell your profits. Well, those shares that are doing well, once the market regains confidence and people are more confident, those are the shares that are going to recover. It's not going to be all the brands of the past. So I'm a firm believer for growth, be offshore, and for income, be in South Africa, because you're not going to get better. I mean, the government retail bond rate went up this month. This is the month of March. A 5-year government retail bond is now paying 10.25%. It went up from 10. That rate changes every month. So the month of March, if you go and invest in a 5-year government retail bond, you'll get 10.25%. There's one thing you need to remember: it's taxable. So you need to calculate what is your gross interest and what is your net interest. So for high earners, it's not an option, but certainly for people who aren't paying tax or low taxpayers, it's a phenomenal 10.25% a year for 5 years. I mean, without any risk. I think that's a great investment, government retail bond. So one's got to understand, if you're looking for income, stay in South Africa. If you're looking for growth, I can't see, South Africa's economy growing at 0.6, 0.7%. Our population growth is much higher than that. I think South African companies are going to struggle. And where's the spending going to come from? We're going to be paying somewhere along the line is going to eke out more tax from every one of us. Interest rates aren't coming down at the moment. Bond rates are still high. So I'm not as positive about the South African market long term as I am about being invested globally. And where would I go to? Yeah, everyone's now saying go to Europe. They've got their own problems. Britain's got its problems. And at the focus, everyone's saying America's not the place to be. My view, and the pundits I read all about, are all convinced that the top companies are listed in America, yet they are global companies. I repeat, global companies. Where's China going? China had some good results. China's a big part of the world. What's going to happen in the wars? No one can predict what's going to happen in the Middle East, nor what's going to happen with Ukraine and Russia. These are all things that just. But you've got to go get through the noise, and you've got to stick to your knitting.
Brian, I've also been curious about the impact of Donald Trump and his decision to actually slash the funding that the U.S. had committed towards climate change and, programs which concern climate change. And I was curious to know whether this was going to have an effect on the market, and that, of course, it has, these are industries that are very much seen as industries of the future, whether you're talking renewable energy, etc. But are we now going to see a shift in that? And how is this affecting commodities? And should people also be looking, at your more traditional commodities?
Well, let's just talk about commodities for a moment. Commodities have been in the doldrum. The only commodity that seems to be going up is gold. Gold is a source where people, when they get nervous, they go into gold. Gold's now trading close to $3,000 an ounce. Remember, you've got to value that in rands. You've got to multiply that by 1831, whereas when the rand was 19 and gold was at 2.8, gold the value in rands was higher. So you've got to understand. But regarding cutting back on climate change, NATO, all the humanitarian resources, one's got to see how this plays out. He makes the comment, and just for those listeners who are not aware, the cutback on humanitarian to the globe was $46 billion. We were getting somewhere between $300 to $400 million. So that's peanuts. That's not even 1% of what America gives the world. So when he talks about cutting back, those are companies that they've got on there. He's just saying, I'm cutting back because why must America be paying so much more than everyone else? On the defense budget, America was paying 3 times the amount that Britain was paying to NATO. He's saying why? But I think some sense will prevail. He's shooting from the hip at the moment. Not going to get through. Not going to get this all through Congress and various other houses he has to do. But we'll just have to see how this plays out, particularly in climate change, climate control.
All right, we're going to pause it there with Brian. I see lots of your questions already coming through on the WhatsApp voice note line. We will get Brian to answer those questions. Of course, you can send more on the WhatsApp line 061 104 107. That's where you can send your WhatsApp voice notes or even text messages 0614 104 107. For our studio line, the number to dial 086 000 2032. It's 10:30.
Thank you, Cathy. In the news headlines on SAFM, I am Ondalambana, and a very good morning. 45 people have been transported to hospital following a fatal bus crash which claimed 12 lives on the R21 freeway near the OR Tambo International Airport on Gauteng's East Rand. Following numerous complaints regarding challenges of scholar transport across the Northwest, the South African Human Rights Commission has launched investigations to address what it deemed as a systematic challenge that infringes on the rights of many learners to basic education. And a federal judge has ordered a stop to the deportation of a Palestinian graduate student from Columbia University in New York who was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents on Saturday. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 26 to the dollar, 23 rand 57 to the pound, and 19 rand 88 to the euro. Markets in Asia ended today's trading session mainly on a negative note. The JSE weaker during mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are trading higher. Gold is trading at $2,898, platinum $958 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $69.40 a barrel.
Outsurance knows South Africans are feeling the pinch, so you've been looking for ways to save money. You could cut corners with things like that coffee brand you love. Or you could go the easy way, where you could save money on your car insurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Let's hear what real Outsurance clients have to say.
So I saved 455 rand. It was quick and easy.
I'm saving 411 rand a month. Outsurance helping me save money.
That saving is actually saving my paycheck. Leave all the insurances and come to Outsurance.
It was fast, easy, and he gave me the best quote. My savings is 644 rand. Come join Outsurance and save some money.
Make today the day you switch and save. And SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The citizens are not willing to settle for anything less than a win.
And now it's with Haaland and on to Foden. Foden to finish the game. And he does.
However, the Seagulls want to triple their efforts to collect valuable points against reigning champs.
Lovely touch for Mitoma, and Mitoma could be away. Here it is. Mitoma one-on-one. Mitoma, delightful.
This is the Premier League. superb contest, Manchester City FC versus Brighton and Hove Albion FC on Saturday, 15 March at 4:30 p.m. Live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
All right, we continue our conversation with Brian, looking at the short term in terms of investing. What should we anticipate? And Brian, as you've heard him saying, hold on. Don't be so quick to change your investment strategy, especially in the midst of these very complex geopolitical times and the impact that that is having on individual economies and the effect that that's having on the markets as well. So I'm going to now be putting some of your questions to Brian. Remember, the number to dial in on is 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. Perhaps there's something that you're particularly concerned about. Feel free to get in touch with Brian. So, Brian, I want to start with the voice notes that have come in for you so far. I think what we'll do is that we'll play the voice notes one at a time.
Good morning, Oskedi. The foreign suspect here. I'm always complaining about the two-pot system. If you can ask Brian to check for us, I applied this thing on the 17th of December last year. Till now, I didn't get my money. So I don't know when we I phoned them, they said they are still checking, still in process. But, and it's not me alone, we are many of us. So if you can get the authority to check about this thing, we have a problem. Thank you.
Brian?
Administration system has been working, and most people, you need to understand under the two-pot system, the company has to apply for a tax directive, and there could be a delay from revenue where they haven't yet given that directive. They wouldn't have given a directive if there was a problem with the individual's tax. So that's the one area that one needs to be concerned about. The other area is if the company is not applying in terms of administration, I think you need to put a lot more pressure. If there are a few of you from one company who've applied for the two-pot system, you certainly should have received your money. I can't, I can't even try to help the individual. Companies will give me no information unless I'm the broker on record, and if I'm not the broker on record, they won't give me any information. They're governed by POPI, which means the protection of individuals' personal information. So you've just got to put pressure on the company and ask them why. And maybe what you even need to do is elevate that to a higher authority within that company. Speak to the HR department. If it's a pension fund, the HR department would talk to the brokers of that company to find out what is happening. If it's an individual retirement annuity, that means it's with an insurance company, could be a Liberty, Old Mutual, Sanlam. You need to put pressure on them. Keep putting pressure, writing notes, and insisting and phoning. That's all I can suggest.
Okay, thanks for that, Brian.
But I understand simply that if everything's clean and your tax is up to date, the admin systems are working. I don't know every insurance company, every pension fund, but that has been my overall feel of withdrawals under the two-pot system.
Morning, KG. Morning, Brian. Brian, I'm a 50-year-old man. Been unemployed for a very long time, but I just decided to start my own small veggies tuck shop and car wash. I make plus minus 6,000 to 7,000 every month. How much money can you advise me to put on the side as some sort of an investment for, let's say, the next 10 years? I'll listen on the radio. Thank you.
Look, if you want to put money away, you can put money into Satrix. If you talk about 10 years, and you go onto www.satrix, .co.za. You can choose a fund. You know, you're talking about earning 6,000 to 7,000 rand a month. You've got to live. The cost of living is increasing, so you've got to be careful. Although with the Satrix, you're not committed. You can put money in. I think the minimum is 300 rand, and you can put money in for a month or 2 or 3, and then you can stop it and then restart again. There are no penalties. That would be the best place. The Satrix is what I call the room. You've now got to decide which funds to invest it in, and if you're talking about a 10-year time horizon, I'm very favored towards what I call the S&P index or the NASDAQ index. You can buy that on the Satrix fund. NASDAQ is the technology companies in the United States, the index, and S&P is the top 500 companies. I would split between those two, although I'm not sure if 300 rand is the minimum into one fund. That you can check up, but go on to Satrix, SATRIX, www.satrix.co.za.
All right, thanks for that, Brian. Mary, you're calling us from Gqeberha. Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to speak to Brian. Brian, I have KRs. You know what I'm talking about, eh?
Yeah.
Hello? And what must I just hold on to them? And is that it?
Well, if your KRs, and you know, very simply, if it's a small percentage of your overall portfolio, it's amazing how well Krugerrands have done over the last over the years. I mean, Krugerrands is a function of the gold price, and the gold price is a function of the rand, and they've done exceptionally well. And people who've collected Krugerrands over the years, just make sure you've got them safe wherever you keep them. There's nothing wrong in having anything between 5 to 7.5% of your overall portfolio. Krugerrand does not give any income. It's purely a function of the gold price. I'd certainly hold on. And if you don't need income, and ultimately the question is who's going to inherit, but if it's going to be children and grandchildren, a wonderful inheritance for them. And if you ever need the money, it's easy. You can liquidate that very easily, add it to your investments and draw income. So it's a good hedge. And at this point in time, gold's certainly been in favor for a long, long time, and I can't see the gold price coming off. So yes, I would encourage holding, and even for someone who doesn't have any gold, there's no harm in having a small percentage of your investments in gold. But remember, it doesn't provide any income. It does form part of your estate, and you've got to just be very careful of how it gets in. You know, how do you pass it down to children and grandchildren?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Mary.
Bye.
All right. Brian, a question here for you on the WhatsApp line. It says, I'd like to find out if the testamentary trust that will be opened upon my death won't be expensive to open and maintain. How much does it cost on average?
Yeah, look, understand, and again, I need to just explain to listeners who may have just heard the question. Testamentary trust is formed in a will. It's called a will trust because you leave assets, and particularly when you leave assets to children under the age of 18, even maybe children under the age of 25. You don't want money to go to them. Children under the age of 18 can't inherit, so they have to go into a testamentary trust, which is a trust which is formed by your executors on your death for assets to be transferred them on behalf of children, and sometimes a spouse as well, or a disabled child, or someone who's not capable of looking after money. You put it into a trust. The cost, there's no trust. There's no cost until the trust is formed. You know, trust costs have gone up. South Africans were only paying a few thousand rands in the last number of years for a trust. A testamentary trust, I reckon, will cost somewhere in the order of anything between 5,000 to 8,000 rand. The trustees entitled to certain fees. They get fees based on the income. I think it's 6% of income. So if the trust is earning 100,000 rand a year in income, they'd get 6,000 rands worth of fees. And then there'd be trustee fees, and trustee fees would probably be somewhere in the order of, again, a simple trust with assets around about the 4,000 to 5,000 rand mark. But you would look around the market. If your will is with a bank or a financial institution, you need to ask them I've made you executor of my state. I've made you the trustees. Please give me it now. While I'm alive, I'd like to know what are the fees you're going to charge me, and you can look around to see what other fees you are. But stay with reputable companies who know what they're doing in terms of managing trusts and have good administration systems so that they will provide your beneficiaries through the trust with the requirements as per your letter of wishes.
All right. This next question is from Anonymous in Gauteng, who says, I'm in my late 50s and my job doesn't offer pension or provident fund, but I had a retirement annuity which I cashed out to pay my legal fees. Now I've been awarded more than R1 million in my divorce settlement and I want to put it aside for my retirement. Should I buy another retirement annuity or be looking at other investments? And if you can please advise and mention those investments.
Okay, so let me say this to you. If you receive that money from what we call voluntary money, then it's after tax. If it's coming from a retirement fund, you don't want to take the cash. You want to actually transfer those funds to what's called a preservation fund. So because your question was a little bit vague, I'm going to deal with voluntary money. You don't want to put it into a retirement fund because you don't take voluntary money and put it into a tax-free investment, but tax consequences at the other end. And you're also only allowed to contribute up to 27.5% of your earnings. So if you've got R1 million and depending again on your age, did the person give us their age?
Yes, late 50s.
Late 50s. Okay. So if you're looking for late 50s, now you've got to determine, are you looking for capital growth? Are you looking for income or are you looking for both? You would go into a balanced portfolio if you're looking for both capital growth and income. You'd look to maybe draw from that somewhere in the order maybe of 4.5% a year, which would give you just under 4,000 Rand a month. The balance would be invested in growth assets, which are more long-term. And when you say there are so many different alternatives, my advice to you is get yourself a financial advisor. Let the financial advisor understand your requirements. Let them fully explain to you the risks you're taking on each component of that investment. Very difficult to do it all on radio and give all the options. There's just so many different options based, and everyone's circumstances are slightly different. But if it's coming from, say, on the other hand, if it's coming from retirement funds, from your spouse, leave it in the retirement fund because then you've got so many more options. You don't need to take it out. Everything you earn in a retirement fund is tax-free, and it's tax-neutral when the money's transferred into the retirement fund in your name. So there are a lot more questions that one needs to ask before I can give an absolute, yes, it's voluntary money, no, it's compulsory money coming from a retirement fund. But certainly speak to a financial advisor, let them know how much income you want to draw, and then they will design a portfolio with one of the institutions. Could be Coronation, Investec, Allan Gray, Anchor, many of them. They'll decide how to invest those funds for you to give you what you need. You talked about late 50s, so when would you want to access funds? Do you need to access funds immediately or not? Hope that helps.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Colin, you're in Cape Town. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, Brian. Brian, I heard you talk about the budget tomorrow and the income tax on rebate on your medical aid. As far as I know, my tax position in the year 2022, 23, 24, I've submitted my medical aid and earnings, everything to my tax position. And I've got nothing back since 2022 because you told me now that you can't claim anymore. So what is a real stance? Where do we stand? Was it open or is it going to close down? Maybe tomorrow we can't claim medical aid? And if so, can I claim for last year and the year before? See that my tax position didn't do the right work that he was supposed to have done. So now I've never received a rebate since 2022.
Okay. Colin, let me answer the question. The tax rebate on medical credits is still in force. I'm hoping, I've got a personal vested interest because I had very large healthcare bills. I'm hoping he does not remove those tax credits, because if he does, every single person who's in a medical aid will be paying higher taxes. I'm going to give approximate numbers. Every person who's contributing to medical aid as a single individual gets a tax deduction, not a rebate, actually gets deducted from their tax somewhere around about the 370 Rand mark. Please don't shout me down for a few rands. A married couple, 740. A married couple with 2 children, around about 1,400 Rand. It's a saving in actual tax. So if your tax bill was 15,000 a month and you're saving 14, you're actually only paying 13,600. I hope he doesn't take away the medical credits. By the way, if your tax consultant or your tax practitioner has not submitted your tax payments, your medical aid payments for 2022, 23, 24, you've got a 3-year window. They can still do that and get you the rebate, subject to the proof of payments being made to the medical aid, because you're obviously over 55, and also the amounts that you've paid over and above that the medical aid didn't pay. There's a formula for those over the age 55. The numbers I gave are for people under 65, which is so if they take that away, and they just mention they're taking away, it's an enormous tax bill that individuals are going to have to find extra. I mean, you take a family of 4 on a medical aid, you're talking about having to find somewhere in the order of 17 to 18,000 Rand more in tax. Do that calculation. Regarding the 2%, well, we've heard what happened. I was going to deliver the budget on the 19th at the last moment. I was told, I got the speech, because the speech is sent out when the minister starts talking. The speech is sent out 15 minutes after the minister starts talking. I received the speech not knowing. I don't think that anyone who sent me the speech knew that the budget was cancelled. I can tell you that there were enormous amounts of items that were still going to be VAT 0 rated. We've done no education on this for the public, particularly for the poorer individuals, the lower income people. What does this mean in food? I heard yesterday on my TV program, I was not aware of it, that white bread is not 0 rated, brown bread is. I cannot understand why. One of my ladies in my office 3 weeks ago told me, did I know that sanitary towels are not VAT rated, 0 rated? I didn't know that, and I think it's ludicrous. So there are lots of, if you're going to increase VAT, you've got to make sure that the public, we as South Africans know what is going to be 0 rated and what are we not going to be paying VAT on. As for VAT itself, it adds anything, but it's not 2%. It's 2% on 15% going to 17%. It's a 13.3% increase in VAT. And work out that on the extra cost of luxury goods, televisions, stoves, fridges, all the furniture, all those types of things, clothing, anything you may be buying. A lot of, I'm not even sure what pharmaceutical, medical are rated or VAT rated. I really don't know, but it's going to cause havoc tomorrow if we actually get a VAT increase. However, I do feel sorry for the governor and spending, take away some of the support in certain grants and in various other areas which they're going to be looking at. I'll really be watching that very, very carefully tomorrow when it's delivered at 2 o'clock. Hope that helps you, Colin.
Oh, okay. And Brian, just a slight correction there. When it comes to sanitary towels, because it was something that I also looked at following our last program.
Is it wrong?
Yes, they've been 0 rated from 2019.
Oh, well, my ladies, okay.
On the 1st of April 2019,
okay.
They've been 0 rated, yeah.
Thank you. Cathy, I don't know all the products. When I was doing my preparation for the 19th and I was busy typing, making some notes, my lady in my office told me, did I know that? So thank you for that, for correcting me on that. And am I right? White bread is not 0 rated.
I'm going to have to double check that.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
So that's what someone told me.
I think you're correct, though, on the white bread. You're correct.
I don't understand. I don't know about eggs and all the things and flour. So, we need to see that list. We should have had that list. We should have had that list weeks ago. So unions and POB and other interested parties could help us understand what is the impact of it a higher VAT rate on the lower income and those that are really struggling. We need to understand that, and it's education. I mentioned last week the story about government taking a contribution holiday. There's going to be chaos because people don't understand that government pension fund, as I tried to explain. I'm not going to go through it again today, but there's an enormous amount of, if you're going to do anything that affects us as South Africans, educate us first. Make sure we understand fully, otherwise you're going to have enormous flack.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that, Brian. I've got more questions for you.
Morning to the both of you. What an excellent show. Thank you. Quick one for Brian. In terms of Satrix, Brian, I have split over 4 assets, which is your the top 40, the Nasdaq 100, and then 2 on your tax-free savings. This total contribution on a monthly basis is $5,000, and I've been doing this for the past, say, about 6 months or so. Brian, I need a way forward. That $5,000, I don't need it anytime soon, but am I doing the right thing for a comfortable future? I'm at 43 years old with no savings. I know. No savings at all, working for the government, and I'm planning to use the Satrix vehicle as my pension savings. 23 years or 22 years left in the market. Thank you.
Okay. Just one comment. You mentioned the 2 being the Satrix 40, and you mentioned the S&P. You said you got 2 tax-free savings. Those are the tax-free savings are like what I call a room. What are the underlying investments? Are they in the same? Are they also in the top 40 and the S&P?
He's on the WhatsApp line.
Okay,
Brian, sorry.
Right. Let me say, last week, by the way, I gave Brian Mapona from Oceans a bit of a going that he hadn't contacted our lady who was worrying about. He did contact her. He did contact me. Thank you for that, Brian. And to this listener, to the caller now that we've got online, you're getting 10 out of 10 this week because you're doing absolutely the correct thing. There's nothing better than the Satrix 40 and the S&P. You've got a good mix and keep it going. And even now, as markets come down, this is great times to be adding more because over the next 5-10 years, you'll get all the benefits of this lower values, buying in at lower prices. So to you, you're getting a gold star. Let us know where we must send it.
All right. Thanks for that, Brian. Let me see. We've got time for this one last question. Tabiso wants to know what your opinion is about what is happening in the US markets. Cryptocurrency is also down. Should we change our investment strategy?
Well, if you understand your investment strategy and you've got a long-term time horizon, and being in America and worrying about crypto, then you've obviously got a more longer-term strategy. Yes, let me explain to you. Amazon is down, and Apple is down, and Nvidia is down, and I can look at their balance sheet, I can read the financials, I can understand, I can delve into what's happening in the company because all the information is freely available, and I can make a call. But when it comes to crypto, it's hype. Everyone says buy, everyone says sell. And at the moment, yes, crypto's come down substantially. Crypto hit $110,000 about a month or 6 weeks ago. It's now down on that about 30%. I can't understand, it's all about supply and demand. And the minute people get nervous, they sell and panic. Well, you don't want to do that with any investments. You don't want to sell. You don't want to panic. You want to hold on. And if you're sitting with cash waiting to be invested, you're going to start phasing it in as the markets get cheaper as they fall. I will keep our listeners very much involved in the fear why markets came off last night, because the fear now of a recession. But, Powell of the Federal Reserve, if he starts to see the American economy starting to move towards a recession, he can always lower interest rates. So there are things that can be done to avoid America going into recession. But the word recession immediately says, I'm nervous, I'm fearful, and I'm going to sell. Don't do that. Crypto, I cannot answer, because crypto is a function of supply and demand. When there's more supply and less demand, then it'll fall, and when there's more demand and less supply, it'll go up. But
Okay.
it's a function we can't comment on.
All right. Okay, Brian, just your contact details very quickly for me, please, for our listeners.
Yeah, it's www.bhca.co.za. And if you want to participate in my Spirit of Youth seminar on the 25th of March, you need to please send a note asking for an invitation, and we'll send it. We've already got about something like 800 or 900 people who will be joining us on that day, 25th of March, Spirit of Youth. What the money I earn today, how will it work for me in the future? Cathy, listeners, have a good week.
All right. Thank you for that. That is Brian Hirsch. And yes, there are 19 items currently that are zero rated. That basket, of course, is likely to increase, especially if we are going to see an increase in VAT.
Dr. Mohlahlana, you are a genius, man.
Dr. Mohlahlana speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. My Bezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, malume. Catch In the Arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. Starts 9 February, only on S3.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
This is the time, this is the now where we need a reawakening of Black consciousness.
100%. And what we've also identified is that from an institutional perspective, there's a shift that's currently happening, and we are also privileged to be able to play our part in fostering this kind of work to become a priority. We have collaborated with institutions such as UNISA, we've got the UJ Arts and Culture, the Center for the Less Good Idea, UNISA Art Gallery, and UKZN Press.
Ludwig Ndlazi, who is the co-owner of Lit Culture.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
The top stories: 12 dying in a bus crash on Gauteng's East Rand, and Nandua calls on Transport Department to intervene in the taxi feud. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. 45 people have been transported to hospital following a fatal bus crash which claimed 12 lives on the R21 freeway near the OR Tambo International Airport on Gauteng's East Rand. The accident occurred on the R21 northbound just after the R24 at the OR Tambo International Airport interchange. All 4 lanes have been completely blocked off to traffic. A Ekurhuleni EMS spokesperson, William Tladi.
So it's a single vehicle, that is the bus itself, that is currently on its side. And on arrival of emergency services, we found people lying across the road. So medical checkup was conducted, and unfortunately 12 of the adults who are the passengers inside the bus were declared deceased on scene by paramedics, and 45, that is the driver inclusive, being hospitalized with minor to critical injuries.
Following numerous complaints regarding challenges of scholar transport across the Northwest, the South African Human Rights Commission has launched investigations to address what it deemed as a systematic challenge that infringes on the rights of many learners to basic education. Some of the challenges faced by learners are being transported in buses that are unroadworthy and constantly break down, leading to learners often being late for school or not making it to school at all. The Commission's 3-day investigation, where different stakeholders are set to testify, begins today in Mahikeng. Chairperson of the investigations, Nomahlubi Kwinana, elaborates.
But over and above that, we also get concerned because of where these children have to travel. You know, even if the school might be located not 5 kilometers away from where they reside. But you find that they are going to be traveling in an area that is unsafe. And that is a concern that we have raised with the Department of Education to say that they must look at each case on its basis.
Soweto Taxi Association Nandue is calling on the Gauteng Department of Transport to urgently intervene in their feud with rival association WATA and clarify who is in fact permitted to work on the routes in dispute. Nandue claims that they have 3 court orders from the Johannesburg High Court declaring that the routes belong to them, while another High Court order, which was handed down earlier this month, declares that WATA owns the routes. This alleged confusion led to a halt in taxi operations in Soweto yesterday, leaving thousands of commuters stranded. Nandua Secretary Xolisiwe Matthews.
As Nandua, we had 3 court orders that were issued by High Court declaring that the routes belong to Nandua. Now, we were surprised that there's a court order that was issued on the 3rd of March declaring that no, Nandua is not permitted to use those routes. Only WATA can use those routes. So now that's why our taxis are not operating, because we want the government to solve this problem once and for all.
The Health Ombuds has recommended that the infrastructure at Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg be revamped. The Office of the Health Standards Compliance and the Health Ombuds released the findings of an investigation into allegations of bad treatment by health workers, and broadcaster Thomas Holmes, known as Tom London, posted videos of himself complaining about the bad treatment by healthcare workers and the state of the hospital. Health Ombud Professor Taula Mukwena.
About infrastructure, there should be refurbishment. They must prioritize infrastructure refurbishment, e.g. the sewer system and the water supply. And then they should get resident artisans to be appointed at the hospital to carry out ongoing maintenance work.
A federal judge has ordered to stop deportation of a Palestinian graduate student from Columbia University in New York who was detained by immigration and customs enforcement agents on Saturday. The judge halted any deportation process while he considers a petition challenging Mahmoud Khalil's arrest despite being in the country legally on a green card. Khalil was among the student leaders during the Columbia University's protest movement last year in response to Israel's devastating military response in Gaza, which followed Hamas attack and hostage-taking. Sharon Brass-Pease reports that hundreds protested the arrest in New York on Monday.
The brazen move against Khalil followed an executive order by President Trump earlier this year to combat anti-Semitism, including on university campuses, which the president confirmed in a social media post Monday, warning that this was the first arrest of many to come. Trump accused some students of engaging in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, further warning that his administration would not tolerate it. Civil rights activists have warned that Khalil's arrest marked a threat to free speech rights. Manhattan federal judge Jesse Furman ruled that Khalil shall not be removed from the United States unless and until the court ordered otherwise. Sherman Rice-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Recapping the top story, 45 people have been transported to hospital following a fatal bus crash which claimed 12 lives on the R21 freeway near the Ora Tambo International Airport on Gauteng's East Rand. I am Lambana for SAFM News Headlines at 11:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Explain what do you mean and why you felt the need to say just that.
I've realized over the last few days that Afrikaner voices have been silent. I think I know why, and maybe we can get to that. But the reality is we've allowed Solidarity and AfriForum to speak for us. And I can't let them speak for me because I vehemently disagree with a lot of what they are saying. But because they're so vocal and very well connected into the media, people think that's how all Afrikaners think, and it absolutely isn't.
Dr. Louise van Rijn was a leadership development expert, social entrepreneur, and also the founder of Partners for Possibilities.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Hi, Casey. I just want to comment on people blaming ANC. I know I did lots of wrong stuff and all that, but important thing, there's someone just said that the towns are dirty. You know, they're all those throwing those things. Not like ANC throwing those into people of the town. You know what I mean? So if we stop blaming all political parties, you know, let's start combine, clean the town, do what is necessary and all that, because blaming is not going to help at all. We've been blaming, I think, for more than 20 years now. We're blaming ANC, we blame this, we blame that. Why don't you combine, do something as a combination?
Good morning, Sister Cathy. Imagine each and every spaza shop in South Africa were registered, paying tax and all that. Imagine the taxi industry owners, small businesses were registered at SARS. They were going to pay good tax for this country. But now we are paying a huge amount in electricity, huge amount in tax and rates in South Africa. This government is not for poor people. It's for those who can make it in life. Good morning, this is Agimati.
Good morning, Kefi. You are speaking with Mahlasi from Midrand. I think that increase, it is a little bit unfair for poor people. Because even if you check, like you said, electricity comes second on the list of expenditure. And electricity includes VAT. So if we're going to increase VAT, it simply means even electricity is going to go up, and that is going to affect poor people. So I think it's a little bit unfair.
Morning, Katrina and SAFM listeners. Look, this budget thing doesn't serve the poor. There are plenty of options that the government could make. I'm not sure of the reducing the deputy ministers, dealing with that. But I'm sure the issue of corruption, there's one person who gave tenders with 1.1 billion to one company. Those are the main things that really need to be considered. Here he is Minister of Finance. He gave two options. In the two options, he says either VAT increment of 2% or cancel totally SRD grants. So it's not serving the poor, because majority of people who are getting this SRD grants are the poor people. So you can see it's not really saving the poorest of the poor, just a certain elite group of people there. Marumo Hapu Maike.
Cathy and Brian, this is Listen. I'm Rebecca. Yay! I hear it, man. That brown bread is zero rated and white bread is not. Why, man? I want the white bread, but Now they are taking it away from us. It is now being away. No, man. No.
Hashtag SFM Talking Point.
I think you're probably only realizing for the first time why it is that white bread costs more than brown bread, right? Generally, if you pay attention to the prices, white bread is more expensive than brown bread, and it's largely because of the VAT. So, yes, white bread has never been zero rated. I don't think it is about to be zero rated either, but we'll have to wait and see what is announced in the budget tomorrow. So I just don't know if this means that you're going to stop buying white bread now that you've learned or you realize that it is rated or it is not zero rated, as we were discussing with Brian. All right, so for our final conversation this morning, we're looking at the hashtag Shutdown Everywhere You Go report, and it's really looking at internet shutdowns that have risen to an all-time high. When we look at the Access Now report for 2024, there were 21 blackouts in 15 countries on the African continent. As a result of this, the African Commission for Human and People's Rights has passed a resolution on internet shutdowns and elections since March last year. When we look at the more holistic picture globally, 296 shutdowns took place in 54 countries. And joining us to talk about this particular conversation more, joining us to talk about it is Abby May, who is a researcher at Open Secrets. Abby, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy. Thank you for having me.
And Bataung Koto Kwani is a technology researcher at iAfrican. Bataung, good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Morning, and morning to South African.
So, looking at this report around internet shutdowns, just sort of first read, before one gets into the details, you can be mistaken in thinking that these are internet shutdowns where basically users and countries have had no control over the system being shut down, but whatever is happening on the back end maybe has led to the shutdown. But of course, once we get into the research, it's clear that this is not just about people being unable to access the internet due to network disruptions that are happening organically. Abby?
I mean, that's true. I think the report in and of itself makes it very clear that there are two primary actors when it comes to internet shutdowns. It's going to be the government that has, a legal right to kind of say, hey, we need to shut down the internet either for security reasons, or they might come out and say, hey, an election's happening, we don't know what's going to go on and things like that. We need to shut down the internet, whatever the case may be. And then you have the big telecom companies that provide these services. And many governments have their own telecom services that are national entities. But then you have the big private companies like MTN, like Vodacom. You have Orange as well in the DRC. And they provide these services throughout the country. And they are actively involved in the shutdown of internets throughout these countries, and it's because they're legally obligated to. And what's really interesting about this is that just because something is a legal obligation, does it mean that it is morally right for it to happen, especially in a context where a country might be undergoing a war, or an authoritarian government is trying to manipulate some kind of election that might be taking place and manipulate the democratic process because of shutting down the internet? And these are the types of questions that the report is trying to challenge, engage in, and raise by highlighting how much money is made through these contracts that telecom companies like MTN gain from governments, but then at the same time need to interact with this very difficult space where it's like you're providing absolutely vital communication services that are tied to fundamental human rights, but at the same time, your biggest client is the government. And if they're telling you to shut it down, you need to shut it down.
And when we look at what some of those countries are, it includes the likes of Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and the Comoros. Those countries are listed as having disrupted access in response to political instability, protests, and elections. Of course, what is concerning about it, Abby, is the fact that clearly this then evokes a conversation around why it is that these governments would do that during these times, and should it be looked at as a way of shutting down freedom of expression, shutting down people's speech in those countries?
I would say yes. And, many governments, we speak about the governments in Uganda, like I mentioned, in the DRC, as well as in Iran, where MTN is either the largest or the second largest telecom operator in those countries, right? And Vodacom as well. And we highlight this fact that often when the internet is shut down, it is happening when mass protests are happening within a country. One of the standouts is our case study in Iran, where we looked into the Masa Amini assassination, essentially, where a young woman by the name of Masa Amini was assassinated by the Iranian security services because of wearing improper hijab. And this sparked mass protests throughout the entire country. And throughout that period in which these protests were occurring, shutdowns were happening on an absolutely daily basis. And who was the biggest shareholder in MTN Iran at the time? It is the Iranian government shareholders that are closely affiliated with the security forces of Iran as well. I mean, we had an interview with an activist who was based in Iran at the time these protests were occurring. And, they were completely unaware that there was this, linkage between MTN and the Iranian government at the time. And what they told us, they informed us that what shocked them was how intimately the Iranian state officials and security services are tied to the telecom communication services that companies like MTN provide in these countries, right? And then, MTN will come out and say, look, there is no way that we are able to operate without dealing with these governments. We are regulatorily obligated to make certain concessions if we want to operate. But at the same time, we don't get a sense of to what extent are you actually managing human rights risks assessments before engaging in these contractual obligations with risky governments? And then there's the case of Sudan, where Sudan is currently in a civil war, and it is absolutely unclear who is in charge of providing MTN, orders to shut down the internet. They do not make this clear in their transparency reporting, which they do every year since 2020. It's unclear who they actually follow orders from in Sudan because it is in a war. And then you have stories of warring factions, the RSF, the SAF in Sudan, different stories on the ground by journalists saying that the RSF have taken over telecom towers. But, all we get in an MTN report back to the public is that their infrastructure has been damaged, and there's actually no contextual information of what that means and what their response is going to be to that, other than, as they say, remaining committed to respecting human rights.
But Taung, without getting too technical, right? And I hope you'd be able to explain this to us in layman's terms. But when the shutdown, when an internet shutdown takes place, what is happening on the back end? How easy is it to shut down the internet? And does it come by way of just a decision? So if there is a directive that says, shut down the internet now, does it happen right now? Or is it something that has to be planned for?
Cathy, at iAfrican.com, we've been following a lot of these internet shutdowns since 2016. And I think for the benefit of our listeners, I'm just going to cite one of the 3 longest internet shutdowns we had on the continent. In 2017, we had Cameroon, and its internet was shut down for 93 days. We had Chad, which is the longest. Between 2018 and 2019, we had 472 days of no social media. Then we had Gabon in 2016 with 5 days. Now, Casey, when you look at the reasons, the top 5 reasons that we've deciphered from our reports, we look at the top 4 reasons being one for these internet shutdowns has been national security, has been controlling information, has been restricting political discourse, and it's been suppressing opposition. Now, Cathy and the listeners, it's very important to note that in these top 4 reasons why the internet has been shut down, there is no technological or technical reason behind the internet shutdown. So it's not like the technology is not working, it's not cables being stolen, it's not none of those reasons. It's all political and governance issues that result in the shutting down of the internet. Now, what is tricky, Casey, is the fact that, like my colleague has alluded, telecom companies receive licenses, like most jurisdictions in the world. Telecommunications law provide that operators need to operate under a license. Now, that license that the government issues to telecommunications clearly has been weaponized as a political tool in order to gain political gains and political resources through governments and political events.
When it comes to sort of the process within the companies, that are offering these services, I'm just curious to know, because these are often multinationals, right? And there will often be a debate around what it is that multinationals can and can't do, and the rules that govern their behavior. And often those rules would be based on the territories in which they are registered. So if a South African company could well argue that, look, these are our values, this is what we subscribe to, this is how we operate, because it's, this is what our licensing in our country of jurisdiction is. How much of that applies in this instance, Batau?
It applies a lot, Casey, because, Casey, the thing about the internet is a tool of labor. It's a resource that is governed by the state, but is provided by private companies, mostly on the African continent. Now, the challenge is that, Casey, this resource that is the internet that is needed by citizens in the country. It's been commodified. And now let's look at the toolbox that telecommunications have in terms of pushing back, let's say, against an order from a state. The first sort of toolbox in pushing back is litigation. Telecommunication companies can litigate against the government, provided that the judiciary is strong in that specific jurisdiction. However, the risk in that aspect is that the cost of litigation is going to be high. Naturally so, because you're taking the state to court. The second sort of option that telecommunications have in their toolbox is the issue of transparency. Now, transparency would be, making public the government letters ordering the letters that the telecoms would receive from government ordering disruptions. That would be able to put citizens in confidence with the telecommunications companies for them to understand what is actually happening behind the scenes. However, the challenge with that is the reputation between the telecom company and government. Also understanding that the license to operate stems from government. So it's a catch-22, and it's a tricky terrain for most telecoms company to navigate, especially when you have a situation where the state is a part owner of the actual telecom company, and on top of that, also issuing the license to operate.
Yeah, so it is quite a precarious position then for these companies in terms of how they should actually be responding or dealing with some of the directives that are issued. We're going to continue the conversation looking at internet shutdowns, what has been behind the internet shutdowns that we've experienced. And as you have heard, most of them have not been due to technical issues or problems with infrastructure, but rather have happened as a result of directives issued by certain governments for the internet to be shut down. And for your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. In the news headlines, Cash in Transit Association in South Africa has called for high intelligence to deal with the scourge of cash in transit robberies. 45 people have been transported to hospital following a fatal bus crash which claimed 12 lives on the R21 freeway near the OR Tambo International Airport on Gauteng's East Rand. And China's governing Communist Party has been celebrating the country's advances in artificial intelligence on the final day of Beijing's biggest annual political event. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Are you a member of a Stokvel or Burial Society? Catch Gezaka on SABC2 on Wednesdays at 12:30 midday and at 10:30 at night, and again on Saturdays at 12:30 midday. The repeat is on SABC1 on Fridays at 4:30. Gezaka team will be at Newgate Mall opposite Bree Taxi Rank from the 6th to the 31st of March from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. to assist your Stokvel or Burial Society. Call or WhatsApp on 081-596-1065. The Facebook profile is Gezaka Stokvel and Burial Society show. Gezaka, brought to you in partnership with SABC Education.
Copperbelt ladies and Durban ladies both want to collect maximum points in the early days of the season. Who will dominate this 90 minutes? Limpopo or KZN? This is the Hollywood Best Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Copperbelt ladies versus Durban ladies on Saturday 15 March at 11:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Yeah. I understand as well regarding the hijacked buildings there. You mentioned the Cape Agalas, but there are others that were owned by the city, but some of them had electricity fitted in, and there were illegal electricity. Some of them were cut off. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. The other one is my building, but they actually invaded it before my time. So we went to court.
Your own building, yeah. I mean, I get it.
It's my building, that thing. There's my central fire station, and that thing is closed. It's gonna fall. So I went there to address them. No, we want to give an alternative accommodation, but they refused. So we said, okay, we're gonna go to court, and then so that we can ask for evacuation and then put the people there, So, but they didn't want to listen. That building was closed because it's sinking. There's a sinkhole there.
MMC for Public Safety in the city of Joburg, Dr. Mqini Chwaku.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
On the 1st of July 2022, the President of the Republic of South Africa signed the National Forest Amendment Act 2022, Act number 1 of 2022, the Amendment Act into law. The President has now proclaimed the Amendment Act and determined its commencement date as the 4th of December 2024. The Minister has also published amendment regulations which seeks to give effect to certain sections of the Amendment Act. A copy of the proclamation notice and the amendment regulations can be accessed on the following websites: www.dffe.gov.za/legislation/gazetted notices or www.gpwonline.gov.za. Any communication or media inquiries in connection with the publication can be directed to Mr. Peter Mbelengwa, Chief Director of Communication and Advocacy. The telephone number is 012 399 8842 or the cell phone number 082 611 8197 or email pmbelengwa@dffe.gov.za.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. We're looking at internet shutdowns and certainly concerning that we are seeing the highest number of internet shutdowns ever. And many of those really driven by various governments. Abby May is a researcher at Open Secrets and Batawung is a technology researcher at iAfrican. Abby, you of course at Open Secrets have done quite a lot of work looking at MTN in particular. It's a South African company, but of course has various subsidiaries in different parts of the world. And when it comes to matters then of human rights, because again the shutdowns have been associated right with attempts to really stifle people's voices when it comes to instability in certain countries. So it is in a way also curbing access to human rights, because if people aren't able to talk about what is happening in their country for the rest of the world to see quite honestly, then the abuse of those of those human rights is even more. The likelihood of abuse is increased. So when you look at MTN as the entity and as a South African brand, democratic country, believes in freedom of speech, how have you found that it has been able to justify why it is that there are these internet shutdowns that it seems to have participated in elsewhere in the world?
When we reached out to MTN to engage with them for inputs from their side on their position on this, they were quite open about the fact that they recognize, as we mentioned earlier in the conversation, they recognize that they have to walk this very tricky line of ensuring that their customers have access to the internet and telecommunication services, but at the same time they have legal obligations to governments, and that comes at the cost and the risk of having to shut the internet down when the government orders for it. I think what is interesting from what we've seen in our research is that MTN has come out and made it very clear that they respect human rights. They respect the fact that they're committed to human rights and ensuring that their consumers in all their jurisdictions have access to their services that are so closely tied to these human rights. But at the same time, even though that is true, they might come out and say that they respect human rights. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're legally obligated to do so. And that's where the really challenging part comes into it. MTN is a multinational company that is headquartered in South Africa. And when we launched the report, we got questions from like the public that were at the launch saying, but MTN South Africa is different to MTN Group, it's different to MTN Dubai, etc., etc. And even though that might technically be the case, certain decisions, especially when it comes to the financial management of subsidiaries outside of South Africa, are being made within South Africa. And MTN has come out and said that publicly. You can also see that in documented, court cases that they've been involved in other jurisdictions where they're accused of, corruption, accused of shutting down the internet in collusion with, governments that were involved in terror activities, etc. And even though that might be the case that there are all these allegations out there, and then at the same time, MTN comes out and say that they respect human rights and are committed to that respect, they're not legally obligated to it. And I think, like our colleague mentioned earlier, the difficulty really is that there is a big legal gap domestically in South Africa and in international law on how to hold telco companies accountable for their complicity in internet shutdowns. They play a big role in it. And not just that, that role is intimately tied to making money from it. Like our colleague mentioned earlier in the call, Cameroon had an internet shutdown for over 230 days, and that came at an economic cost to the country. And that economic cost is estimated to be about $38 million. But it didn't matter to the Cameroonian government at the time because they were insistent on having to shut down the internet in English-speaking regions in Cameroon, because Cameroon's government is primarily French-speaking, and there's basically contentions between those two regions. And it's deeply concerning because MTN is going to come out, and they have said, they will continue to say that they're trying their best, that they do their transparency reporting, that there's only so much that they can do because they're legally obligated to the governments in the countries that they operate in. But what is so concerning is that that might be the case, but it appears that they're not legally obligated in the same way to the human rights of the citizens that are actively needing and have to have these telecommunication services.
Yeah, look, I guess at the end of the day, it's that these companies are putting their bottom line ahead of any other interest, right? That's what it is. They don't want to jeopardize their chances of being allowed to operate in those countries, and it makes them quite pliable then to whatever it is that those governments say, despite the fact that, in most of these countries outside of MTN Iran Cell, MTN has it owns majority shares in those subsidiaries. We've got a couple of questions coming through from our listeners. Let me start off with this one.
Good morning, Cathy Mohlahlana, but originally from Limpopo. I hope my question will go through. Please ask your guests, is it safe to have Elon Musk have the monopoly of the world's internet access? As much as it'll help the poor of the poorest who can afford it, obviously, because for referring to those that are in remote areas, but J under general, is it safe to have him have the world's monopoly in regards to internet access? Specifically looking at South Africa, if maybe him and the South African government come to a sit down and actually agree on something that will benefit both parties. Is it safe? Because I once saw a post on Twitter or X by Brick saying Elon Musk threatened that if he would shut down Starlink in Ukraine, they would lose the war.
Cathy, hi.
this government or these countries which like to delete the internet because they don't want people to access internet to expose them what is happening in their country. This thing is simple. They can cut the internet, it's fine. But on the other hand, if I record with my phone, there's no internet, right? But those video recordings, they will stay in my phone till the internet come back, and then we will post it. Although it will be little bit too late, but they cannot destroy evidence at all. It's Kosana here.
Okay, thanks for those views. But Awung, do you want to respond to our listeners?
Thank you, Katie. Katie, look, I think listeners need to understand in our pushback toolbox, us at iAfrican, we've recommended, I think, 4 critical things I think can be implemented in order to push back against these internet shutdowns. The first one is the industry of telecommunications need to be more aggressive and be more organized. For example, in South Africa, we have the South African Bank Risk Industry Center, right, where they fight off things like it's the banking industry coming together, fighting things off like, cybersecurity, hackers, and all those things, because they've got an interest in that. The telecoms industry needs to come together, create a risk body or risk center that allows them to negotiate with the government as a bloc against these unilateral orders to shut down the internet. The second one is that we need more international enforcement. We need an agency similar to, in the United Nations has the WHO, it has, aid agencies that fight against aid and all these other agencies also on the continent. We need agencies like that to be the watchdog over governments. So when these unilateral decisions are made to shut down the internet, then these international enforcement bodies can then come and intervene on behalf of citizens. The third and fourth one I think is really, really important. The third is the media. We need the media attention on these matters, because the more the media broadcasts and inform citizens around what is actually happening when your Facebook and WhatsApp is not working, the real reasons why they're not working, it is good. The last one is the universities. Universities are very strategic institutions. They allow we need to allow universities need to produce more research on the impact of these internet shutdowns. Once these researched impact reports are published, are presented at conferences around the world, then the global community can be more informed and influenced in different spaces to sort of combat these internet shutdowns.
All right. Thank you both so much for coming onto the show. This conversation has really been insightful. That is Batawung and Abby there. It brings us to the end of the talking point for this Tuesday morning. We're back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday. Up next is the book reading.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Explain what do you mean and why you felt the need to say just that.
I've realized over the last few days that Afrikaner voices have been silent. I think I know why, and maybe we can get to that. But the reality is we've allowed Solidarity and AfriForum to speak for us. And I can't let them speak for me, because I vehemently disagree with a lot of what they are saying. But because they're so vocal and very well connected into the media, people think that's how all Afrikaners think, and it absolutely isn't.
Dr. Louise van Rijn was a leadership development expert, social entrepreneur, and also the founder of Partners for Possibilities.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
From the 10th to the 16th of March 2025, the South African National Biodiversity Institute is hosting its first National Gardens Week. Visitors can enjoy free entry to all national botanical and zoological gardens across South Africa, including Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden and the Pretoria Zoo. This year's theme, Grow Your Joy, invites visitors to embrace nature, wellness and community by taking a peaceful walk, joining a guided tour, or learning about conservation in some of the country's most breathtaking green spaces. Nature has never been this open to all. Celebrate, protect, and enjoy biodiversity wealth. Visit www.sanbi.org for more details.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of the book The Thing with Zola by Zibu Sithole, read by Lerato Mvelase.
I really love your enthusiasm, Zola, but I'm afraid your first day is going to be crazy. I received a call yesterday and I couldn't refuse the job. We need to put together a one-day African wedding expo in just 3 weeks. Oguhle sighed. Please, have a seat so I can brief you. Zola sat down in an armchair next to a small table where Oguhle was setting out their coffees. She took a sip. The coffee was black with no sugar. She liked hers sweet with milk, but didn't have it in her just then to tell Oguhle, even though Oguhle was adding one heaped teaspoon after the next to her own coffee. I wish I had something more interesting for you to sink your teeth into first, but we roll with the punches. Oguhle smiled, stirring her sweet coffee. You don't like weddings? Zola asked. I mean, the African Wedding Expo is the first of its kind, showing off the traditional elements of African weddings across the continent. That's pretty exciting. Well, someone's done their homework. Oguhle looked up at Zola over her cup. Zola blushed. She had read up on every expo expected this year and tried to imagine which ones larger than life would be involved in. The African Wedding Expo had been one of the most highly anticipated. Call me jaded. The idea of putting together the perfect African wedding makes me feel a bit sick right now, Oguhle said, twisting her face. But a little jealousy isn't a bad thing, right? Zola was so surprised that for a moment she forgot herself. I honestly can't imagine anything you could be jealous of, Oguhle. The woman clearly had it all. And if she really wanted to get married, she could no doubt do it tomorrow. Not so. I am a reluctantly single woman, neck deep in all things wedding. I'm sorry, Oguhle's eyes became watery. I shouldn't have said that. Consider this a sensitive subject. You and me both, Zola said, hoping to close the subject but still be comforting. Oguhle flashed a smile of appreciation. As if on cue, the office started to fill up with new faces. Amongst the incoming bevy of colleagues came the receptionist Zola had seen on the day of her interview, her arms burdened with an over-the-top bouquet of flowers. Hi, Zola. I'm Rochelle. These flowers are for you, she said excitedly. Someone must be missing you already. Zola took the flowers, certain there had been a mistake. Oguhle clapped her hands in disbelief. And just as you were telling me how single you are? Confused, Zola read the card. They're from an acquaintance. Please, you have them, Oguhle, she offered, handing them over. I hope they make your day a little happier, and as for me, I'm keen to settle in. Zola stood up and headed for what was clearly her desk. It was hard to miss it. It was the one with the huge welcome balloon floating above it and a gift basket waiting for her. In the basket, she found a collection of gorgeous stationery and various tubes of hand creams and lip glosses. So thoughtful, she thought to herself. Almost as a last-minute addition, a laptop bag with its price tag still attached leaned against the side of her cubicle. As she looked up, Zola realized that she had a clear view of Oguhle's office, and Oguhle had a clear view of her. After finishing her coffee, Oguhle walked across the office with a huge bouquet, a mix of all her favorites. She loved flowers. Everyone knew that. And even though these hadn't been meant for her, they would definitely brighten her day. Once at her desk, she put the flowers in a vase and arranged them nicely, pulling out the card to throw it away. Though she couldn't resist reading the mysterious message that had left her new employee so baffled. Zola, I knew you'd have yourself sorted before I even came back. Good luck on your first day. Mbali Tabete. Oguhle froze. Why would Mbali be sending flowers to Zola? Chapter 9. Small World. Oguhle felt her legs shake. Her knees had turned to jelly and her head felt too heavy for her neck. How could this be happening? She stared at the card in her hand. It was definitely Mbali's handwriting, with the loops all slopping to the left. Surely there had been a mistake. These were her favorite flowers, but the card was definitely addressed to Zola. The whole thing made her sick. Oguhle picked up her phone and dialed Mbali's number. While it rang, she wondered what she could say. This wasn't an accident. He knew exactly what he was doing. Her office wasn't big. She'd just hired Zola herself, and she would obviously notice a bouquet of her favorite flowers on Zola's desk. And did they have to be her favorites? He clearly hadn't considered her feelings. Oguhle knew that Mbali could be self-centered, but this was beyond hurtful. It was like he had taken aim and opened fire. And there was Zola right now, sitting at her desk in Oguhle's offices, surrounded by Oguhle's IT people helping her to get settled, and getting flowers from Oguhle's man, a man who clearly no longer wanted her, a man who thought so little of her that he was sending his new love interest Oguhle's favorite flowers, knowing that she would see them. No answer from Mbali. She cut the call and scrolled down past Mbali's mother's number and Mtunzi's number to her best friend, Terry's number. It rang only once before Terry answered. It really sucked that Terry now lived in Cape Town. Terry, I honestly hate him, Oguhle said, putting her head down on her desk. You will not believe what he's done now. The thing was, counting all of Mbali's wrongs didn't make Oguhle want him any less. It never had. She and Terry slipped into their regular routine of listing Mbali's failings and had got as far back as the time Mbali and Mtunzi had thought it would be funny to throw her into a swimming pool fully clothed on her 15th birthday when Zola knocked on her door. She's here, Oguhle hissed. I'll call you back. She took 3 deep breaths that did nothing to prepare her for asking Zola to come in. Are you okay? Zola asked. Your eyes are red. Don't worry about it. We've got tons of work to get through, Oguhle said coldly, and deftly opened a number of files on her laptop. Keep in mind that all these files are confidential and property of larger than life as stated in your signed NDA, Oguhle said without looking at Zola. I would have liked to have given you a soft introduction to the industry, seeing as you have no experience at all. But changes of plan are the nature of this beast called event management. Her nails clicked on the keyboard as she sent one file after the other to Zola's newly set up company email. Khanyisa, our office manager, will brief you on what needs to be done today. And Zola, this company is my baby. Don't let me down. Oguhle dismissed Zola with a wave of her hand. She hadn't even let Zola speak. Zola felt herself shrink as she walked back over to her desk to read the files. Everything seemed straightforward, but she was nervous, so she went to find Kanyisa for the guidance Oguhle was so certain she needed. After asking around a bit, she found Kanyisa's desk right back next to hers. "What's wrong, new girl?" Kanyisa smiled knowingly. "You met the real Oguhle?" Zola shrugged and remembered how her mother had warned her never to speak ill of her boss, especially with her colleagues. That was not the kind of drama she needed in her life, and besides, Oguhle hadn't actually been nasty to her. She was just being the boss. It was something Zola would need to get used to. "Nothing's wrong," Zola said, forcing a smile. "I'm just a little overwhelmed." Kanyisa nodded kindly and went over the tasks for the day. The first thing they needed to do was secure a venue for the event, compare quotes, and go through the logistics of transport, catering, and requirements of the exhibitors.
There was another episode available online at www.penmacmillan.co.za and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursdays on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Leratom Velase, technical production Wiseman Manmele, Nanda Koza, and Tato Mapuruma.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Twelve o'clock on Tuesday, the 11th of March 2025. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
10 of the deceased are outside, and 2 of the other deceased are still inside the vehicle. And rescue teams are also still waiting up until the forensic investigators are done on scene.
12 people have died and several others left injured following a bus crash on the R21 northbound near the OR Tambo International Airport on Gauteng's East Rand.
The people that were tasked to protect us as policemen, they seem to be failing dismally to help us or to protect us. That is why the anger it just went to that extent from the community point of view.
And an uneasy calm has returned at Amaoti in the north of Durban following the killing of 6 community members. Coming up in sport,
the Warriors have spoken out about the points being docked and the massive fine that they've undertaken, and it's top versus bottom, or tops and bottoms. Busy premiership match tonight.
John Hirica with those details later in the show. Please share your views with us. 41391 is the SMS line number. Charged at R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X, our handle at SABC News _radio, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082-692-3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Tuesday edition of Updated Noon. First, though, is the latest news with Ondelambana. Thank you, Sakina. In the top stories, a call for better intelligence on cash in transit heists and 12 die in a bus crash on Gauteng's East Rand. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. Cash in Transit Association in South Africa has called for high intelligence to deal with the scourge of cash in transit robberies. KwaZulu-Natal has emerged as the most dangerous province in South Africa when it comes to CIT robberies. More than 200 CIT robberies were recorded last year, with KZN leading with 27%, followed by Gauteng at 25%. CITA's Incident and Analytics Manager Dr. Alice Marie says CIT IT criminals are highly trained and need to be dealt with in the same manner.
So we saw in the groups of cash in transit robbers that there's different nationalities working together. For example, last year there was a bomber that specifically comes from a neighboring country, and his skill was just to place the explosives and detonate it. We in South Africa need more intelligence, information that can be put into intelligence, because there's always someone who sees something or knows something. I mean, that is the only way that you can be preventative.
45 people have been transported to hospital following a fatal bus crash which claimed 12 lives on the R21 freeway near the OR Tambo International Airport on Gauteng's East Rand. The accident occurred on the R21 northbound just after the R24 at the OR Tambo International Airport interchange. All 4 lanes have been completely blocked off to traffic. Ekurhuleni EMS spokesperson William Tladi.
So it's a single vehicle, that is the bus itself, that is currently on its side. And on arrival of emergency services, we found people lying across the road. So medical checkup was conducted, and unfortunately 12 of the adults who are the passengers inside the bus were declared deceased on scene by paramedics, and 45, that is the driver inclusive, being hospitalized with minor to critical injuries.
The situation at Amaoti in the north of Durban is calm this morning. This follows the killing of 6 community members from the weekend, allegedly at the hands of a notorious gang in the area. The first 3 people were murdered at a house after 3 armed suspects entered their home on Sunday. In the second incident yesterday, 3 people were shot and killed in the street while police patrols were ongoing. Nomusa Mambi's son was among those killed at the weekend. She has travelled from the Eastern Cape to collect his remains.
We are going through a difficult time. What is happening in Amaoti is disturbing. When we arrived here, people were walking up and down carrying pangas. We are not familiar with this place and we don't know where to stay. We want government to intervene and end this violence. We are calling on police to play their role.
Meanwhile, another family member, Ntombizo Dimbuyela, says they feel neglected because they are not receiving enough assistance.
We are heartbroken. We feel neglected by police. We slept in my son's house. We have not received any help. There were no police that were patrolling in the area. We were hoping that there would be police visibility after the incident, and we were hoping that police would check on us, but we are on our own. We are scared because we are not familiar with this place. We are here just to fetch bodies of our
China's governing Communist Party has been celebrating the country's advances in artificial intelligence on the final day of Beijing's biggest annual political event. Speaking at the National People's Congress, President Xi Jinping said he wanted China to become the global leader in AI by the end of the decade. The BBC's Laura Baker.
Speeches have highlighted the success of the Chinese AI startup DeepSeek, which launched a chatbot compatible to its US rivals in January, stunning experts in Silicon Valley. Washington has tightened export controls for advanced chips and placed more Chinese firms on a trade blacklist as concerns grow over how AI could be used to support Beijing's military. But the Foreign Minister Wang Yi described this as unjustified external suppression and said that when there are blockades, there are breakthroughs.
Recapping the top story, Cash in Transit Association in South Africa has called for high intelligence to deal with the scourge of cash in transit robberies. I am Ondilambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 12:30.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Thank you so much, Ondela. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks so much for being with us here on Update at Noon. It's 7 minutes after 12. So we will take you back to KZN, to Amawoti. Remember, we spoke to our reporter yesterday who was in the area and happened to be there as gunshots rang out, and they later discovered that 3 people were shot and killed, and that bringing the number of 6 people who were killed since the weekend. Well, she's back there, is Nonjabulo, and tells us that there's an uneasy calm in the area, but she has managed to speak to some people on the ground, so we'll bring you some of that later on in the show. And then following up on that bus accident on the R21 in Johannesburg that has claimed the lives of 12 people, and we'll just try to find out whether there are any further developments in that particular story. And the family of a 33-year-old man who was killed at the Philadelphia hospital in Dennilton say that they are struggling to accept his death. Now, Klasle Dwaba was killed on a Saturday morning when another patient attacked 3 others in a ward, and security guards failed to contain the patient, fired rubber bullets at him, and unfortunately Klasle Dwaba was killed during all of that. And we'll be speaking to the family about that particular incident and also see what the developments are there. And then the community of Tabazimbi, which is, of course, an iron mining town in Limpopo, they are saying that they are going to march to the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment to protest against what they say is the department's unfair handling of their environmental authorization application. They say that they've applied for a mining license in Tabazimbi 17 years ago, and they've completed over 17 public participation processes, and yet the minister refuses to meet them to address their concerns. So we've got our reporter Pumzile watching that one for us. We'll bring you updates. And also the South African Human Rights Commission is in Mahikeng to investigate challenges in the scholar transport system. And this follows numerous complaints regarding the inadequate, unreliable and unsafe transport for learners, which of course then negatively impacts on their rights to education. And also just keeping an eye on Soweto following what happened yesterday with the taxi protests and the road closure. And you heard yesterday on the show the subsequent killing of 2 people after an accident involving a Metro police vehicle. And also the Minister of Electricity and Energy will undertake a site visit at Eskom's Letabo power station, and also a few things happening in Parliament. Our reporters watching those for us, and we continue also watching the e-voting conference that is being hosted by the IEC in Cape Town, and the focus is on today on the experiences of countries which either use the system or have deposed of the system after trying it out. And a few court cases, Jocelyn Smith trial among others, continuing today.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
And we start with that horror crash on Gauteng's East Rand, where we understand that a couple of dead bodies still remain trapped under a bus which crashed and rolled on the R21 near the OR Tambo International Airport. And this as preliminary investigations continue to take place in order to understand exactly what led to the fatal accident. Now, at least 12 people have been confirmed dead, while 45 others have been seriously injured and taken to nearby hospitals. Gauteng traffic spokesperson Silo Marimane says that the cause of the accident remains unclear.
Well, at this stage, preliminary information indicates that the bus was just traveling towards to the airport side, and it seems that it has sort of like veered off the road. We don't know the exact cause of the crash, I must say to you, because the driver has been taken to hospital, as I'm told now. So it just veered off the road. It hit some barriers alongside the road, and as a result thereof, people have lost their life. But I also just want to appeal to our motorists. Just yesterday, we have lost 4 school children. So we are appealing to our motorists to be really extra vigilant when they are traveling on our public road. The exact cause of this crash will be subject to the investigation. We do not really know what had happened.
And that was Gauteng Traffic spokesperson Silo Marimane. But for more on this story, we joined on the line now by Ekurhuleni EMS spokesperson William Ntladi, who is currently on the scene. Mr. Ntladi, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Update at Noon.
Thanks so much, and thanks for allowing me to speak to the listeners.
Mr. Ntladi, first and foremost, are those bodies that were trapped under the bus still there, or have they been removed?
Yes, I can confirm that now. The two bodies are also recovered. So basically, all the bodies are now being currently they are being loaded into the forensic pathology services vehicles. So it is 12 of them, and yes, those who are still at the hospital, we don't have an understanding as to what is happening with them with their injuries, but we can confirm that now we had about 15 critically injured patients that were transported to hospitals by ambulances in the morning. But as to how are they doing now, like I said, one cannot tell as to how is their conditions.
Mr. Ntladi, one of the injured, of course, the bus driver. Have you been able to establish any more information at this stage about what could have caused this accident?
No, unfortunately not. But we can confirm that he's also admitted in the hospital. And yes, we've got the leadership of the municipality, of which this bus belongs to the municipality, if I can state that. Which is here, the MMC of transport. Then they will be dispatching the team to go to the hospital also to go and check on all the other patients that are being admitted in various hospitals. As far as Charlotte Maxeke in Joburg, Mohlahlana, Far Eastern hospitals, we can name them a few that they have received all these 45 other patients that were transported by ambulances from this incident.
Mr. Ntladi, earlier we were told that the road was completely closed. Are you able to give us an update with regard to traffic flow in that vicinity?
Definitely. We're still on site now. The freeway is still closed, that I can assure you. And we're still pleading with the motorists to please bear with us because the investigation is still going on. And what we have done is we have placed strategically so our traffic officers from Gauteng province and from local EMPD officers to help with the flow of the traffic on the alternative routes that are surrounding the airport and this incident area here.
Mr. Ntladi, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for the update. And that was the Ekurhuleni EMS spokesperson, Mr. William Ntladi, with the latest update. That road remains closed. And, of course, they have now recovered the remains of the two people who were trapped under the bus. And the death toll remains at 12, 45 injured. And, of course, the investigations will continue. And that, of course, is the latest on that fatal bus crash on the R21.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
Now, at least 6 people have been killed in a turf war between community members and a notorious gang in Amawoti in the north of Durban. Now, all 6 deceased are believed to be residents from the area. The area is close to Inanda, where the bodies of 5 people were discovered hacked to death in a sports field in January. Now, at the time, Inanda residents called for the release of the 12 suspects who police had arrested in connection with those murders, saying that they were working to keep the community safe. Nonjabulo Mtungwa Makamu has more.
The area of Amawoti came to a standstill as residents closed taxi ranks, businesses and schools in less than 24 hours from Sunday. At least 6 community members have been gunned down here. The first 3 people were murdered at a house after 3 armed suspects entered their home, demanded valuables and shot and killed them. The second incident happened just hours later While police patrols were ongoing, it's alleged that this notorious gang has been terrorizing the community for years. The local community policing forum say residents have lost their faith in police. Sam Fega is with the Inanda Community Policing Forum.
We no longer sleep in our homes. As it is, people are being shot right in front of the police. That shows the lack of respect for the CPF and that of law enforcement officers. There are police patrolling, but last week, people were shot and killed a few meters away from where the police were. And even today, these people were killed with so many police present. Police must admit that they have failed to instill law and order in the area because as the CPF, we admit our defeat as well. They must bring in the SANDF to root out all these guns that were looted.
Bongeleni Pewa, chairperson of the Inanda Policing Forum, also shares the community's frustrations, saying enough is enough.
People are dying day and night. Each and every weekend we have to attend the funeral. That is why it's come to the point where the community has said, no, enough is enough. Let them get up and do something to protect themselves. Simply because, the people that were trusting to protect us as policemen, they seem to be failing dismally to help us or to protect us. That is why the anger, it just went to that extent from the community point of view. We are hoping if maybe the minister, because they said the only guy they are waiting for now should be a national minister, who's Honorable Pusenzo Mkhun. Maybe if he should arrive, maybe it might be him who can just give us the way forward on this dilemma we're facing right now. Now, the position, maybe they can tolerate to see the soldiers patrolling throughout the area.
Community member Nolindelo Mbedi has lost 2 of her family members at the hands of the gang members. She says her brother was killed in December last year and her son was killed last month. Late December last year, they killed one of my siblings. We went to bury him back at home in our homestead. In February the 14th, they killed my son and injured my other brother. The gang entered through a roof and they took everything, including our money. My brother is in a critical condition as we speak. We just buried my son. I am afraid to stay in this area of Amawoti. This is not a safe place. Police spokesperson Brigadier Jay Naika has confirmed police are investigating 3 cases of murder.
Police in Inanda are investigating 3 counts of murder following an incident in which 3 men aged between 20 and 30 were shot and killed by unknown suspects in Amawoti earlier today. The victims, who were standing on their own, sustained multiple gunshot wounds to the body. The suspects, who are unknown, arrived on foot and fled immediately afterwards. The motive for the killing is unknown at this stage.
Amawoti residents say they will not back down over these incidents and the situation remains volatile. I'm Nonjabulo Mtungwa Makamu in Durban.
And for the latest, we join on the line by Nonjabulo Mtungwa Makamu. Nonjabulo, good afternoon. So less than 24 hours and 6 community members gunned down in Amawoti. What's the situation like currently?
Well, yes, greetings to you, Sakina. Well, Sakina, we did go back to the area of Amawoti, and I must say that the situation looks very calm. When you look at the way the situation was yesterday when we arrived, it looked like it was a battlefield. Everyone, kids, old, young, everyone was carrying like some sort of a traditional weapon, your sticks, your pangas, nopkiris. So this morning, when we got there, it felt like we were in a different location. It didn't feel like we were in the same location as we were yesterday. Today, it looks like it's business as well. Taxi ranks are operating, schools and other services are operating. But you can also tell with the mood that the community is not, is not feeling safe, and they are actually not pleased with, all these incidents that have taken place in that community.
Nonjabulo, we keep hearing about this notorious gang that is allegedly terrorizing the community. Who are they? Are they known to the community? What have you managed to glean about who this gang may be?
Well, the information that we have got, from the community members on the ground, as well as some of the staff members, they're saying that there is a gang. They call themselves the West Gang. Apparently, it is a gang that is feared in that area of Inanda. They're operating in that Ink area. When I say Ink, it is Inanda, Yontuzuma, and Kwamashu. But they are more prominent, or shall I say, they are said to be more powerful in that area of Inanda, and mostly in Amawodi and Bambai. The same gang that is alleged to have been involved in some of the incidents of terrorizing communities in Amawodi. They are also said to be the same as those in Bambai. So that gang that is led by a certain individual, according to the information that we are getting, but we have not verified this from police officers, Sakina, but we are told that they are recruiting